So, as I'm sure most of you are aware, our southern border is in the news again. I think it's always in the news, but definitely ramping up again. And so I was going to try to write something this morning, and then I thought, hey, I'm still in my pajamas and I haven't done my hair and makeup yet, so let's just make a video instead. But really, you all know that this issue is very near and dear to my heart. And so I just wanted to share a few things with you this morning that I have learned over the last year. Um, I got to take a trip to the border in June last year and see firsthand what's going on down there, and also just meet people and talk to them and ask questions. And then I've had the chance to go to some conferences and read books and just get a better understanding of what's going on. So as I'm listening to the media coverage of this situation right now, there are some things that are really standing out to me about the coverage. First of all, I think the language that we use when it comes to talking about people is really, really important. And a lot of the language that I hear used is very dehumanizing. So as we think about this issue, as we think about people and policies, I would just encourage you, as I try to do as much as I can, continuously remind myself that these are people with stories, people who are fleeing danger, people with families, oftentimes even kids are involved in the numbers that we're seeing and the rhetoric that we're hearing. So that's my starting point, is that these are people who are loved and deserve a chance to be safe. The situation right now, and the reason that things are kind of ramping up and back in the news again, is that as the COVID national disaster ends, so does Title 42. And Title 42 allowed border agents to expel people based on national health concerns. So basically, anyone who came to the border seeking asylum could be sent back to Mexico under Title 42 because they may pose a health threat to the United States. So what this created was this huge backlog of people now who, for the last several years, have been sent back to Mexico, but may have a credible asylum claim. So that ends tonight, which means that for a lot of people, they will come to the United States and try to present their asylum claim. One thing that I learned when I was at the border, possibly one of the most clarifying things to me, was to understand that seeking asylum is a legal process. It is guaranteed under international laws. But that in order to ask for asylum in the United States at our border, you have to be on U.S. territory. However, until you have a legal status in the United States, to step onto U.S. territory means that you have crossed the border illegally. So this is a very complicated thing, because all of the numbers that we see that represent illegal crossings, the vast majority of those people are seeking asylum. So what I saw when I was on the ground in El Paso and Juarez, Mexico, was this situation. So we have the border wall, and not every part of our border has a wall, but a lot of the places where people cross do. So there's the border wall. This is the U.S. side. This is the Mexico side of the border. Then we have the river, the Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande River is the actual border between Mexico and the United States. So the legal border is the river. And we have this little piece of land in between, which is U.S. territory. So this piece of land between the river and the wall is U.S. territory. In most places, it was like maybe 10 feet to 30 feet wide. Border Patrol drives up and down this space right here and patrols between the legal border and the border wall. They also monitored this side of the wall. But a lot of the border patrol that we saw was in this zone right here, in this piece of land between the river and the wall. So what we saw happening, what was explained to us, was that in order for a family or an individual to present themselves for asylum, they had to cross the river so that they were legally on U.S. territory, and then find a border patrol agent and present themselves for asylum and ask for a credible fear hearing. So they could not stay on the Mexico side of the river and ask for asylum. They had to cross the river. But the second that they crossed that river and stepped onto U.S. soil, they were considered an illegal crossing. So this is a really complicated issue because our laws require people to be on U.S. territory to ask for asylum, but then we consider them an illegal crossing. And we also consider them an apprehension, even though they have turned themselves into Border Patrol. So what this has kind of created is this rhetoric and these numbers that sound scary, sound like an invasion, sound like there's all these people who are just flooding, illegally crossing, and are now in our country illegally. But the reality is a vast majority of these people are crossing the border, asking for asylum, presenting themselves to Border Patrol. Now, that's not to say no one is crossing illegally and staying in the United States illegally. We know that happens. And that is an issue that has to be dealt with. But when we see the numbers, I think it's really important to understand that seeking asylum, people who are seeking asylum are not illegal immigrants. They're following our process. They're following our laws. And this surge that we're going to see is a backlog that we have created. So it will be chaotic. I have heard those words. It will be contentious. There are going to be pictures and rhetoric and numbers meant to scare us into thinking a certain way. And I would just encourage us to remember that the vast majority of these people are individuals and families seeking safety. The majority of them will be following our legal process. They will be presenting themselves to Border Patrol, but you will still see those very high numbers of illegal entries because nearly everyone who crosses and asks for asylum will be considered initially an illegal entry. So we can just be in prayer, be supportive of those who have to maintain order and try to process the people. We can be in prayer for those who have made these journeys to our border who are seeking safety. They need support. If you know of any shelters along the border right now, they are going to probably be overwhelmed on the Mexico and the US side of the border. And so support them, send money, send supplies, lots of prayers. And just remember the humanity behind the numbers and the people that are being represented and the stories that are out there. This will be a time that we really need to put aside kind of the partisan rhetoric and just remember the people behind the problems.